Welcome to another revision tutorial from MrMcMillanREvis, making revision easier. This is the first part of a series on the problem of evil. This introduction will cover an outline of the problem of evil itself and then some of the general responses to it. What is the problem of evil? The problem of evil, also known as the problem of suffering, is an argument against the existence of God. It claims that the existence of evil and suffering, such as pain, distress, and death, is incompatible with the existence of the classical theist God, who is meant to be all-loving and all-powerful. The Greek philosopher Epicurus gives one of the earliest statements of the problem of evil in what is sometimes called the Epicurean paradox. It's worth quoting and trying to remember it in its entirety. Is God willing to prevent evil but not able? Then he is not omnipotent. Is he able but not willing? Then he is malevolent. Is he both able and willing? Then whence cometh evil? Is he neither able nor willing? Then why call him God? The 20th century Australian philosopher John Mackey attempted to demonstrate the problem clearly by reformulating the Epicurean paradox into what he called the inconsistent triad. The inconsistent triad is a collection of three statements which Mackey claims cannot logically all be true at the same time without leading to a contradiction of some sort. The statements are: 1. God is all good, or benevolent. 2. God is all-powerful, or omnipotent. And 3. Evil exists. Mackey's line of reasoning goes as follows. If God is willing to remove all suffering because he is benevolent, and he is able to remove all suffering because he can do anything because he's omnipotent, then surely there should be no evil. But since evil exists, then it must be the case that God doesn't exist. The problem of evil can be found in broadly two different forms. Both Epicurus and Mackey's arguments can be classified as forms of the logical problem of evil. This is a deductive argument which claims to prove that God's existence is logically incompatible with the existence of evil. The second form of the argument is called the evidential problem of evil. One of the key proponents of this form of the argument was William Rowe. This argument differs from the logical problem of evil in that it doesn't claim that God's existence is completely incompatible with the existence of evil, but rather that the existence of evil, and in particular intense or unnecessary suffering, makes God's existence unlikely or improbable. In this sense, the argument is inductive in that it doesn't claim to prove its conclusion. Having said that, most of the exam textbooks still focus on the logical problem of evil as expressed by people like Epicurus and Mackey. So let's have a look at it more closely. This argument is usually expressed as a deductive argument and could be summarised as follows. Premise 1, evil and suffering exist. Premise 2, God is all-powerful and all-loving. Premise 3, an all-loving, all-powerful God, if he existed, would remove evil and suffering. Conclusion, therefore God does not exist. This is an example of a deductive argument. This is both an advantage and a disadvantage. The advantage is that it means that if the premises are true, then we have to accept the conclusion. However, the disadvantage is that it also means that if we can show that any one of the premises upon which the argument is based is not true, then we have invalidated the argument. Let's now look at each of the premises and judge whether they are open to question. Premise 1. Evil and suffering exists. Although this statement might seem obviously true, some thinkers claim that it is not correct to think of evil as a thing that actually exists. One train of thought suggests that evil is simply the absence of good. Darkness is the name we give to the absence of light. Darkness is not a thing in itself. Silence is the absence of sound. It is not a thing in itself. If evil is simply the absence of good, then it's not a thing in itself, so cannot be said to truly exist. Another train of thought, common in the Eastern religions, is that evil and suffering are human illusions. They are the names we give to situations when our own greedy and selfish motives are not satisfied. Premise 2. God, if he exists, is all-powerful and all-loving. Although theists such as Jews, Christians and Muslims would agree with this statement, there are many people who, despite believing in God, would disagree with this description of him. Deism is the belief in a non-personal God. This being would not have the characteristics of goodness or of being loving, since these are qualities only associated with persons. In Zoroastrianism, which has a dualist view of the universe, God is not seen as omnipotent, and therefore this could be a reason why he does not or cannot prevent evil. Premise 3. An all-good, all-powerful God would remove evil and suffering. This is perhaps the crux of the problem of evil. Most attempts to solve the problem of evil question this assumption that God would want to, or is able to, remove all suffering. Some argue that God does not want to remove suffering because he has legitimate reasons for allowing it to continue. most commonly that through suffering God can bring about some higher good. On the other hand, some argue that God simply cannot remove suffering, not because he is not all-powerful, but because it is logically impossible. In other words, trying to have a world with good, but not evil, is like trying to have a world with up, but not down, or light, but not dark. It simply is impossible. These attempts to explain why God chooses not to prevent evil and suffering are called theodicies, and in the other parts of this series I will outline some of the most well-known theodicies. That's the end of part 1 of this series on the problem of evil. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, follow me on Twitter, and download the podcast from iTunes.